Hi everyone, this is Kelsey Jones, Executive Editor at Search Engine Journal, and I'm joined here today by Jordan Koene, Evangelist at Searchmetrics. Jordan, thanks for joining me.
Absolutely, Kelsey. Thank
I
you
know
for having me.
we've seen each other a lot with the SEJ Summit that Searchmetrics is doing, so
Yep.
that's good.
It
We have
has
one
been
more.
fun.
One more in Atlanta, November
There it
10th.
is. Yep.
So I know today we wanted to talk about mobile get-in and how it wasn't really a thing.
Yeah, so mobile get-in wasn't as big of a splash as a lot of people expected. A lot of news, a lot of hype. Google promoted it heavily before the actual event in April. The reality, though, is that the data shows a couple of key things, right? That there's clearly some signals that Google is prioritizing, and it's kind of like a checklist for most brands. And that is the sense, in the key factors are really around user experience, right? First and foremost, everyone's saying that, like, what is your user experience in mobile? Speed is the second most critical aspect to be thinking about around mobile. And then lastly, it's technical form and function. And so today what we're realizing, it's more of like a checklist, like get these things done.
Yeah.
And if you have them done, then you're going to be fine. You're going to have the same
worry about
rankings as desktop. But if you don't, we're seeing some pretty negative results.
I know. What are some of the things for those of our viewers out there who haven't heard a lot about mobile get-in or trying to get on the train? What are some things that you want to make sure you have when it comes to optimizing for mobile now?
Yeah, so for mobile today, it really reviewing what your current mobile status is, right? And kind of going through a thorough audit and analysis of what you're doing from a mobile perspective. If you don't know what you're putting out there from a mobile perspective, it's likely going to be a bad outcome for you from a search rankings position.
Yeah.
So I mean, really, what we're advising a lot of companies and brands is do a thorough review of your mobile experience, the same way you're doing all the time with your desktop, and get into a cadence every quarter, every month. Go back and revisit what your mobile experience looks like, and if you should be changing it, maybe going to responsive, maybe going to a different strategy than what you currently have built out.
Do you recommend that all businesses do responsive, or do you think there's a time and a place for mobile sites? Because I'm not a fan of a lot of mobile sites, because mobile versions of sites, because they're not done right, and I can't find what I'm looking for, and then I have to search for the view full site link, and it's not good.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mess out there today. And I don't think that there's going to be a lot of standardization in the short term. I think that responsive design works really well for certain brands, certain companies, depending on what assets you have, how big your site is. But that doesn't necessarily translate itself well to every brand and every company. There are a lot of large websites that have really big ecosystems that part of their site's in responsive, part of their site's a mobile site. Some of their site isn't even mobile friendly, and they want to keep it that way. And so there are a lot of different things going on around the mobile space. I think that there will be some consolidation around that as technology continues to evolve. But today, right now, there isn't like a steadfast rule.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. One thing that I know a lot of people talked about when it came to mobile get-in is the ads. And so those have kind of changed as far as what you can do with the ads. Do you have any suggestions for that?
Yeah, I mean, recently there's been a lot of talk around like the pop-ups and the interstitials in when you're kind of going into a mobile experience. A lot of people are really trying to push the mobile app through their mobile experience, which makes a lot of sense. But there's a right way to do that, and I think that the surprising and alarming thing about it is that Google is making statements about this stuff.
Yeah.
And in reality, you should just go back and look at your own user data, because I'm quite sure that the results are not as positive as you think. We've heard from a lot of our own clients and a lot of partners that we work with that the intrusive approach is seeing the same type of results as historical display intrusive approaches like pop unders and things of that nature. You can deliver a lot of them, but they don't really translate into a lot of traffic or results.
That makes sense. Do you think that when is it a good idea to have an app versus just a mobile version of your site?
It's a tough question. I think to some degree, everyone should be doing some sort of evaluation around apps. And an app is becoming its own ecosystem in and of itself. There's a competitive search behavior behind the Google Play and the iTunes store. And so the reality is that you're missing out if you're not playing inside of those ecosystems. Now, the reality is that there's a lot of businesses that were just built on apps, right? And so you have a lot of companies who are app who are app first. And so because of that, it makes it very difficult for them in web scenarios. But then you have the reverse, which is most traditional companies who don't have a strong app presence, and how do you make your app more present? Actually, in my session today, I'll be showing an example of calculators in all the calculator apps. If you look at every single calculator app, either in Google Play or in the app stores, they all look exactly the same. So how do you pick? How do you pick what calculator do you download? Than the other? Yeah, and it's really hard to be able to stand out in the app world today, because there isn't a lot of flexibility as there is in search. You can do a lot, you can change a lot in search, you can position yourself in a variety of different web pages and keywords and target a lot of different users. When it comes to apps, there isn't that kind of flexibility. It's a very traditional, hard category structure. And so, very long-winded response to your answer. However, the point that I'm trying to get at is it's very difficult to say whether you should or shouldn't be playing an app, you should or shouldn't have an app, but you should be evaluating it. Any business should be evaluating, because it's an opportunity to gain new customers.
At least considering it, even if it might not be the right thing for you.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so to kind of wrap up, are there any, distinctive pointers or tips you would give to companies that are looking to better mobilize their site for mobile? Okay, you know what I mean. Mobilize your site.
Yeah, so I think that the number one thing for most brands and websites to focus on is make it really simple, right? Like, break down the site to a point where it is you're digesting one or two messages. You don't have a lot of real estate in mobile, and that's likely never going to change. So if you know how to pinpoint your message, one or two key images or key lines on mobile, it makes it easier for the user to ultimately enter the flow that you expect, and that hopefully what the user wants as well. So I think that the best piece of advice, and this goes into a lot of things, user experience and so forth, but if you can focus your message into one or two things on the mobile device, you'll be much more successful.
Sounds good. Well, Jordan Koene, thank you so much for joining us. Again, Jordan with Search Metrics and Kelsey Jones, Search Engine Journal. This is Kelsey Jones, Executive Editor of Search Engine Journal, and I'm here today with Guy Kawasaki, Chief Evangelist of Canva. Guy, thanks so much for joining us. I know you did a keynote today at PubCon about personal branding and social media.
Conferences I attended, the speakers were fantastic. The weather here has been amazing. I mean, this location, the hotel.
The thing I'm really liking about the SEJ Summit is the 3 takeaways structure.
Yes.
I'm leaving with way more.
I also like the single session format for conferences.
I agreed to be a speaker here because I think above all else, the quality of people who attend the meeting, something to be said about the fact that you can't just pay to come here. It's by invitation only.
What I've really liked about the speakers is that it's been very well-rounded. We focused on content generation ideas.